Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm here to give you guys my NXT Way Back Wednesday reviews, and this week I'm going to be reviewing NXT from January 9th, 2015. This wasn't the episode I had planned to review. I added the Raw episode to my watch list on the WWE Network, but you know, I will still review it anyways because it is what it is. I'll just review the episode I plan to review next week. Um, but in a sense, this is a pretty famous episode because this was the last NXT that ever aired on Thursdays. I actually forgot about this myself. NXT used to be on Thursdays. This was the last week that it was on Thursdays because SmackDown was moving to Thursdays, and I think WWE didn't want NXT going up against SmackDown, and they moved NXT to Wednesdays at 8 o'clock, and SmackDown was on Thursdays at 9 o'clock. So, no, and SmackDown was on Thursdays at 8 o'clock because NXT used to be on Thursdays at 9 o'clock. It used to go up actually against TNA Impact Wrestling every week. So Thursdays was kind of an exciting time for me at this time to be a wrestling fan because I watched. There was 3 shows on at the time when the NXT originally came out. It was Legends House. Then right afterwards it was NXT, and then it was TNA Impact. Now, if you ever asked which one I watched, sometimes I would switch. It would depend on what was interesting me more. Sometimes I would watch TNA. Sometimes I would watch NXT. So overall, NXT moving to Wednesdays, I thought was kind of cool, because NXT got its own night. I really kind of I was really starting to get like really invested in the NXT product at this time. So I'm actually happy that NXT did the right thing and went to Wednesdays because I just was. Um, but I think at this time though, I really wasn't watching much Impact at this time. I think I was watching a little bit of TNA Impact, but not really all that much. No, actually, I was because this is when TNA moved to Destination America. So actually, that is one. TNA actually had moved to Fridays at this time, so it was only NXT nights this night. But whatever. This was the last night that NXT was on Thursdays. Um, but we had the commentary team of Corey Graves, Rich Brennan, and Jason Albert. I remember this was when pretty much Corey Graves had just joined the commentary in NXT because um, a little over 2 weeks before this, he had announced his retirement from wrestling, and he became a commentator. So I thought it was pretty cool to hear Corey Graves on commentary. You clearly saw they were going to position him as a heel commentator, and you could clearly see that he was a natural fit for it. One, since he was a heel pretty much his whole career in NXT, and yeah, he wasn't like perfect. I think he was actually pretty good on commentary. He's definitely needed improvement, and you could totally see he's much better on commentary now. But he was still fairly new at it. So, but as for where all these guys are now, obviously Corey Graves became the big heel commentator in NXT. He pretty much was like the voice of NXT up until NXT Takeover San Antonio last year, and then he stepped away from NXT, and now he's the commentator for Monday Night for everything pretty much, Raw, SmackDown, and both the pay-per-views. So I think Corey Graves does a great job. Rich Brennan unfortunately was released. I believe he was released like a year after this actually, which sucks for him because I thought he actually was a pretty good commentator, but they released him, which I thought was a mistake. And Jason Albert, obviously, I thought it made sense to have him on commentary because he had been somebody that had competed on all the big shows and everything. So I kind of liked having his voice out there. Obviously, he ended up leaving commentary shortly after this, I think, because he became the head trainer at the Performance Center. So, and that's pretty much where he is now. So, yeah. But we had the first segment of the night. Sami Zayn came out to cut a promo. Now, this was right after Sami Zayn had finally achieved his dream and finally won the NXT Championship after that year-long chase for it. And this was the first time we had seen him since he had been taken out by his former best friend, Kevin Owens. And he comes out, and he's a great babyface. I really wish they had done a lot more with him as a babyface because he was a great underdog babyface. And he comes out and celebrates that he's with his NXT Championship, and he celebrates in the crowd. He cuts a promo talking about how he finally achieved his dream, winning the NXT title, how this title doesn't mean to him that you're the best. It means that you don't do what anybody tells you to do, and you get to the top your own way. And he says that this title is not just his title, it's the fans' title. And he talked about how NXT TakeOver All Evolution was the greatest night of his life until Kevin Owens attacked him. And he goes to continue talking. He gets interrupted by Adrian Neville, and Adrian Neville congratulates him on the match. And Sami Zayn appreciates it, but he says, I think you're entitled to a rematch, though. So William Regal comes out, and he makes the match for the next episode of NXT. I thought this was a very good segment, very effective, and I really enjoyed the segment. I loved it. I thought this really put over Sami Zayn as a babyface fighting champion. Adrian Neville, I thought this made him look good, and I liked it. And you could totally see that they were planting the seeds for Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens in the future, which I will talk about later on. As for the aftermath, obviously, in that match in the following week, Sami Zayn would defeat Adrian Neville, and Adrian Neville would slowly be written off NXT. He worked one final takeover, and then he worked one final match with Kevin Owens in an episode of NXT. Then he was pretty much right to the main roster. Adrian Neville, obviously, they shortened his name to Neville. He really didn't have all that. His first year, he really didn't have the biggest success on the main roster. He was working with all the big names, but then eventually they just lost their way with him. Then eventually, he ended up getting injured just before WrestleMania 32, before he could compete there. Then he came back. He joined the Cruiserweight division, became the king of the Cruiserweights. He was a dominant Cruiserweight champion. Then obviously he lost the title, and then he shortly walked out right afterwards, and we don't know what's going on with him. I miss seeing Neville in WWE. And as for Sami Zayn, pretty much he went on, after he retained his title, he went on to feud with Kevin Owens for the NXT Championship. Kevin Owens defeated him in NXT TakeOver Rival for the championship, and they did that whole feud where Sami Zayn tried to get revenge. Kevin Owens took him out again, and Kevin Owens went on to have a huge dominant run on the main roster. Sami Zayn returned, cost Kevin Owens the WWE World Heavyweight Championship by eliminating him from the Royal Rumble match, cost him the Intercontinental Championship by preventing him from winning the ladder match at WrestleMania, and they had a match at Payback where Kevin Owens won. They had a four-way match at Extreme Rules for the Intercontinental Championship where they both prevented each other from winning, and Kevin Owens prevented Sami Zayn from winning the Money in the Bank ladder match at Money in the Bank. And then Sami Zayn won the final blow-off match at Battleground. They were both drafted to the same brand of Raw, where Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn would have like 1,000 more matches. Kevin Owens went on to become Kevin Owens became a two-time Intercontinental Champion as this was happening. He also won the WWE Universal Championship. He held that title until Fastlane 2016. And Sami Zayn really didn't do all that much on Raw, which was kind of a shame for him. And then Kevin Owens went on to become a two-time United States champion, and then they were both drafted to SmackDown, and now they're pretty much a tag team together. Sami Zayn ended up turning heel, and now at the Royal Rumble, they're both going to be competing in the WWE Championship match. So overall, I think Kevin Owens has actually had a fairly good career in WWE. I think there's some things they could have done better with him, but overall, he's been really dominant in WWE. He's done about everything that you can do in WWE. Sami Zayn, I feel like they did a good job with him in NXT. Then when he got caught up, he started off really well. Then once his feud with Kevin Owens was over, he was just really lost in the shuffle. Really didn't do anything. And then he went to SmackDown, and the same thing kind of happened. And now that he's a heel with Kevin Owens, it's just working perfectly for him. He's a great cocky heel, and I love it. Then the Vaudevillains have an interview. The Vaudevillains had consisted of Simon Gosh and Aiden English. They used to be a tag team, and the Vaudevillains were having a rematch against the Lucha Dragons for the NXT Tag Team Championships. And the reason this happened was because at NXT TakeOver Evolution, the Lucha Dragons had defeated the Vaudevillains, but they claimed that the wrong guy took the fall, so they had the rematch here. So the Vaudevillains pretty much say they're going to win the NXT Tag Team titles and destroy the Lucha Dragons. I thought this was a great promo, and they said they're going to prove why they're the real men. As tag team champions. Then we had the first match. It was Hideo Itami versus Curtis Axel. This was when Hideo Itami had just come into NXT, and Curtis Axel felt like his career really wasn't going anywhere, so he wanted to reinvigorate his career in NXT. So I thought this kind of made something, made both guys want to fight for something, and I thought they worked a pretty solid match. Hideo Itami ended up winning with an enziguri right to the face. Everyone wanted him to do the GTS, but since everything that happened with CM Punk, with him walking out and stuff, I don't think they wanted him to do the GTS just yet. And Itami won. Made sense because Itami was someone that was a new talent. I thought this was a good idea for someone like Curtis Axel to kind of work with Itami, to kind of teach him how to work the WWE style, so I actually like that idea. As for where both competitors went, unfortunately, Hideo Itami hasn't had the best luck in WWE. He ended up getting a shoulder injury a few months later. And then he ended up coming back in 2016, and then he ended up getting a neck injury. Then he came back in 2017, had a great NXT Championship match at NXT TakeOver Chicago, ended up turning heel, and then he pretty much finished his run in NXT, and now he's in WWE on the main roster as a member of the Cruiserweight division. So, yeah, and then obviously Curtis Axel pretty much is kind of in the same spot. He's been in some factions and stuff, but he really hasn't had the biggest success in WWE, which I'm kind of ashamed about because he's actually a pretty good talent. And I find it kind of funny that Curtis Axel's been in all 3 of these episodes of NXT Way Back Wednesdays that I reviewed, so I kind of find that funny. But overall, if I had to rate this match, I probably rated 2.5 stars. Then we had Natalya and Tyson Kidd getting interviewed, and Natalya, they were pretty much hyping a matchup next week coming up between Tyson Kidd and Finn Balor, since Finn Balor was a new signing to the WWE also, so he was feuding with Tyson Kidd, and Natalya tries to answer the questions for him. She talks about Total Divas, and Tyson Kidd is being really rude to her and tells her to go check on the cats because he's the one that takes care of them the most. So Natalya goes to do that, and Tyson Kidd said he's going to beat Finn Balor and get the NXT Championship and become the face of NXT and the face of the entire world. I thought it was a great promo, and obviously, unfortunately, Tyson Kidd no longer wrestles anymore. He became a tag team champion, and then when they lost the titles, he was injured shortly afterwards. Another career-threatening neck injury. Natalya was actually doing some pretty good things on the main roster. Took her a little while. But she's doing some really good things now. She was just recently SmackDown Women's Champion, and she's a heel, so yeah. They're doing some good things with Natalya, so. But it's kind of sad knowing that Tyson Kidd can't wrestle anymore. Then it shows a hype video package for the feud that was going on at the time between Baron Corbin and Bull Dempsey, which, was pretty much just a monster feud where they both were trying to one-up each other by beating their opponents faster. And they announced that they were going to have another match at the next episode of NXT. Now it's interesting, Bull Dempsey's now fired and out of the company, and Baron Corbin sucks. And he hasn't gotten any better all that much. Maybe on promos and stuff, but yeah, he just sucks. He's really bad. And I'm glad the WWE's kind of dropped the ball with him because he's awful. But yeah, whatever. Then we had Alexa Bliss versus Sasha Banks with Becky Lynch ringside. Damn, it's certainly different going back and watching Alexa Bliss back then, because I know if you had asked me if Alexa Bliss, who came out as Tinkerbell, pretty much as like a fairy, was going to be like the way she is now, where she comes out and she's like a dominant heel and can cut great promos and stuff and has pretty good matches. She was very green at this time, and she needed a lot of work, and ironically enough, that's what happened. Sasha Banks, it's also like a complete 180 about with her. She was a great bitchy heel at this time, and now it's like completely opposite. They're trying to push her as a face, and it just doesn't work. I used to like her alliance with Becky Lynch, and Becky Lynch is even different in here. Becky Lynch is like a corny baby face now. It's completely like a 180 with all these women. If you ask me if these, Alexa Bliss, ironically enough, has probably had the best career out of all these three women. But this match should have a purpose because you had Sasha Banks who inadvertently broke Alexa Bliss's nose. So Alexa Bliss, though, because this was at the time when Alexa Bliss was enhancement talent, so Sasha Banks squashed her, hit the double knees and the bank statement for the win. And ironically enough, I think these two women have heat in real life, so I think it's kind of funny every time I see them work a match with each other. Like I said, Alexa Bliss has improved tremendously. Shortly afterwards, she became a manager and became a great heel. It has great personality. Then eventually she was called up to the main roster. Is a two-time SmackDown Women's Champion by defeating Becky Lynch. Coincidentally, she defeated Becky Lynch in a women's match in the first ever steel cage main event match on SmackDown. She went to Raw, became a two-time Women's Champion, and two-time Raw Women's Champion. And yeah, Alexa Bliss has been great in the main roster. Sasha Banks shortly afterwards won a four-way match involving Becky Lynch to win the NXT Women's title. Had one of the best matches at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn, the best match of probably ever in NXT. Then eventually was called up to the main roster. Won the woman is a four-time Raw Women's Champion, but she really hasn't done all that much on the main roster. And then Becky Lynch, kind of the same thing. She got caught up to the main roster, made her a corny babyface. Eventually, she won the SmackDown Women's Championship at Backlash 2016. Then she dropped it to Alexa Bliss at TLC, but really hasn't done anything either. So none of these women have really done anything. So except Alexa Bliss. So yeah. And I thought this match was a decent match, so I'll give it 2 stars. Then Tyler Breeze cuts a promo talking about how he's going to return. We had the next match. It was Tyler Breeze versus Chad Gable. This was the first time I believe I had seen Chad Gable wrestle, and he was definitely enhancement talent at this time. But he was over with the fans, and he looked really good in this match. Chad Gable hits a couple of amateur background moves. He hits a cross arm breaker over the ropes, but then eventually Tyler Breeze catches him with a beauty shot, and yeah, that was that. But I thought the match was nice, and obviously it made sense for Tyler Breeze to go over since he was returning. I don't know where he went. Tyler Breeze pretty much was the guy at all the takeover that would have like some of the best matches. He would pretty much be like the guy that put over the other guys. Then eventually he was caught up to the main roster. Really didn't do a whole lot in his first year there. Then he eventually is now in a tag team division, and he's doing some funny skits in the tag team division. As for Chad Gable, he became one of the best tag teams in NXT, and now he's in a tag team, and he's going to be competing for the SmackDown Tag Team titles at the Royal Rumble. So yeah, then afterwards you see that like Marcus Louis was watching Tyler Breeze because they were trying to set up a whole storyline, but then Marcus Louis got released, so it didn't happen. So, but this match was a pretty decent match actually. I'll give it 2 1/4. And then we had Finn Balor get interviewed, and he talked about how he was going to beat Tyson Kidd next week pretty much. And I think Finn Balor did beat Tyson Kidd. Then he went on to become the NXT champion. He's the longest reigning NXT champion ever in NXT, just with the males anyways. And then he went on to get caught up to Raw. He became the first ever WWE Universal Champion, and then they haven't done anything with him since. Now he's with, his faction, the Balor Club, but really that's it. Then we had the main event. It was an NXT Tag Team Championship match. NXT Tag Team Champions, the Lucha Dragons versus the Vaudevillains. I thought this was a good main event here. The Lucha Dragons take control early. They hit a bunch of dives on the Vaudevillains. Aiden English rolls up Sin Cara outside the ring, but then the Lucha Dragons take back control. They hit more dives on the Vaudevillains, and then the Vaudevillains get the heat on Kalisto for a while. I thought they hit some good double team tag team moves on him. Then eventually Sin Cara gets the hot tag. He hits a sunset flip powerbomb off the apron, off the turnbuckle, and tries to roll up Aiden English for the win, but Simon Gosh breaks it up. He knocks Kalisto off the apron. Sin Cara knocks him out the apron, and then the Lucha Dragons win when Sin Cara rolls up Aiden English turned it into a powerbomb as Kalisto jumps into him, and then the Lucha Dragons retain the NXT Tag Team titles. I thought this was a good 3-star match, good way to end off the show. And obviously, another thing is they had the superstars like Charlotte, Sami Zayn, and Adrian Neville hype up that NXT was moving to Wednesdays, which was, I thought, nice. And as for where these teams are now, the Lucha Dragons went on to lose the NXT Tag Team titles about a month later after this, and then they had their final match at NXT, an NXT TakeOver Rival. Then they were called up to the main roster right after WrestleMania, and they didn't really do anything with them. Then Sin Cara got hurt, so Kalisto went singles for a little bit, became a 2-time United States champion, and then when Sin Cara was brought back into the fold, they just randomly ended the tag team. And they were both drafted just into separate brands. Sin Cara to Raw, Kalisto to SmackDown. They didn't really do anything. So then they were both drafted back and switched back and forth. And Sin Cara's not doing anything at all. And Kalisto is in the Cruiserweight division. He's a one-time Cruiserweight champion. And then pretty much he's just doing nothing on 205 Live. So, and as for the Vaudevillains, obviously they went off TV for a bit, came back. They eventually did win the NXT Tag Team Championship at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. Then they dropped them a couple of months later. They were called up to the main roster right after WrestleMania 32. They were doing really well for a while, and then obviously they ended up going down to pretty much enhancement talent. Then Simon Gosh got released, and now Aiden English is just in another tag team, and he's back doing his sinning gimmick again. So whatever. Kind of pisses me. So yeah, overall, this episode kind of pisses me off to watch it back to see where everyone's went, because Adrian Neville's gone. Sami Zayn, they're just starting to do things right with him now. They weren't for a while. Hideo Itami, unfortunately, isn't where he should be because he was hurt. Curtis Axel, same thing. I'm actually okay with where Baron Corbin and Bo Dempsey were because I didn't really like them all that much. Sasha Banks is a bland babyface, as well as Becky Lynch. And Tyler Breeze is doing okay. Chad Gable's actually doing pretty well. Finn Balor's not really doing all that well. Tyson Kidd, unfortunately, is retired. And the Vaudevillains and the Lucha Dragons didn't really become much of a team at all on the main roster. So what kind of pisses me off is watching some of these NXTs back. As good as they are, because if I had to rate this episode, I thought this was a good episode. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. I enjoyed it pretty well. It's just pisses me off to see that none of these guys really amounted to anything. The biggest star on the show is probably Sami Zayn, pretty much, but he's really not all that big of a star. I mean, I think the biggest person that's benefited the most in WWE terms is Alexa Bliss, and she's like enhancement talent on this show. So whoever would have thought that would have happened? But that's my review. Thank you guys for watching this video. Please make sure you guys like, comment, and share this video so you can watch it. Make sure you subscribe to this channel for more content and click on the bell so that way every time you upload a video, you guys will get the notifications for it. Make sure you guys do the same thing for my CM Brothers on the Talkinator channel, and that's pretty much it, guys. Talk to you later.